words your fate.
So a couple years ago, I was just trying to make ends meet. I was making 125,000 a year working in Silicon Valley, really working to be able to live. And the company that I was working for was hacked, and it was a ransomware group. We had no backups, of course, and the company ended up paying the ransom. In this case, the ransomware group got $10 million for a decryption key that we needed to be able to decrypt our data. So I thought to myself, what am I doing? I could be making that kind of money. So I decided that it was time for a change. So I sold all my stuff, jumped on a plane, and moved to Kiev. So I live here now. I make about $10–15 million every few months, and I have no troubles in the world. This is really a victimless crime. I don't target elderly and steal people's retirement funds. I target greedy corporations that deserve it. They frankly deserve it. They don't back up their data. They're stealing money from everyone anyway, so we're just stealing it back. I'm like Robin Hood, except I don't give the money away to the needy, I keep it. I drive around in a $15 million Bugatti. I'm doing great. Nothing keeps me up at night. I have no problems with what I do. I'm not hurting anyone. This is my life now. My favorite CISO is the CISO that thinks that EDR is the silver bullet to security. That all they need on their endpoints to protect them is EDR. What they don't know is how easy it is to disable it. I was contacted by an employee for a company that wanted to sell me her credentials. She was up to her neck in debt, pretty much me back in Silicon Valley, needed help financially. So we offered her $10 million for her username and password, and she gave it to us. Now I'm gonna show you what happens when an inside employee gives her credentials to us in exchange for money. And all you have is EDR to protect yourself. I'm going to show you how easy it is to disable it if I run into it on that network. So let's get started. So EDR starts up when Windows starts, and this is controlled from within the registry. Now, in the services control panel, you can attempt to go in there and manually stop the EDR service, and any good EDR is going to prevent you from being able to do that. The EDR is also going to prevent you from doing something like trying to go into the task manager and dumping LSAS to a dump file. Along with other protections, the EDR should prevent you from being able to do that. Now, there's a vulnerability that was discovered in one particular EDR vendor that allowed you to be able to go into the registry and change the startup value to 4 for start reg dword. And by setting that value to 4, it prevents the EDR from starting when Windows starts, effectively disabling the EDR. Now again, this vulnerability has since been fixed by the EDR company, but by default, some EDR vendors will have that monitoring of the registry for unauthorized changes off by default. So my recommendation to you is to go into your EDR policy, no matter what EDR you're using, and ensure that unauthorized modifications to the registry is not turned off, that you're monitoring for unauthorized changes to your registry file. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to disable EDR when this isn't being monitored for. Here I'm in the services control panel, and I'm going to right click on this service for the EDR and attempt to manually stop it. Here you can see the ability for me to do that has been denied. Of course, I shouldn't be able to do this. And now in Task Manager, I'm going to attempt to manually end the process for the EDR, and it should prevent me from being able to do that. Now I'm going to attempt to right click on LSAS and just go ahead and dump that to a file. And the EDR, because it's currently running, should actually prevent me from being able to do that. So by right clicking, you'll see this option, create dump file, and you can see that the EDR has prevented me from being able to do that. Now what I want to do is, because I've compromised this machine, I want to go ahead and change that start registry entry for the EDR for the reg_d word value to 4, which will prevent the EDR from starting when Windows starts. To do this, you're just simply going to go over to the HKey local machine, go under System. Within System, you will see another subfolder in there called Current Control Set. We're going to click on that. And within Current Control Set, we're going to go ahead and click on Services. Within Services, we're going to go ahead and scroll down and find the subfolder for our EDR. And I'm going to change this value to 4 instead of 1 for start. And we're going to change the start key for the other services that the EDR uses. And we're going to change that start value from 3 to 4. Same with this service. We're going to change the start value to 4. And we're going to go ahead, and now that those changes have been made, I'm going to go ahead and restart Windows. And now, hopefully, once the machine reboots, of course, this is an indicator of compromise, but you know, if you're at this point, you have much bigger problems than your server rebooting when it wasn't supposed to. I'm going to go ahead and load up the services control panel again, and we should see that the EDR failed to start or was disabled from starting. There you go. It's disabled. So again, this was very quick, very easy, just modifying a few registry keys to not start at Windows boot. Now within Task Manager, I should be able to right click on LSAS and now click dump, create dump file. And it should allow me, since the EDR is no longer running. And there you go. I've got my dump file. Now we can take that dump file and we're going to go ahead and load that into Mimikatz and grab those credentials. Okay, just to recap, because I was able to disable EDR on the victim host, I was able to dump LSAS to a file, and I went ahead and uploaded that dump file to a staging server that I have. And here in this window on the right hand side, you'll see that I downloaded the memory dump file via SFTP to my staging server. And I'm going to go ahead and now load Mimikatz and run that dump file through Mimikatz in hopes of carving usable credentials out of that dump file. Hopefully domain administrator credentials. And there you go. We were successful in carving credentials out of that dump file. Okay, so I have downloaded my ransomware executable to the host where I found the data that I want to lock and leak from this victim. I'm going to go ahead and execute that now, and it will encrypt that folder of files. And there we go. And that's what happens when a greedy corporation relies just on EDR to protect its endpoints. Okay, so what happens when I'm on a machine and EDR can't be disabled because I can't do it through the previous technique that I mentioned earlier within the registry? There are ways to actually evade an EDR solution, not just disable it. The technique that I use to evade EDR is a technique that leverages WER-fault. What WER-fault stands for is Windows Error Reporting Fault. And what WER-fault does is it basically generates error reports for both Windows 10 as well as Windows applications. And leveraging WER-fault, we can actually cause LSAS to dump memory to that dump file that we created before after disabling EDR. But because we can't disable EDR, we can't just go into the task manager and dump LSAS again. So we need to leave the EDR tool running. There's two techniques that I'm going to actually show you. So one is actually adding a firewall rule to Windows that prevents the EDR from communicating an alert to the server. And then once we do that, we can go ahead and use WER-fault to do a silent process exit on LSAS to dump memory from LSAS to that memory dump file. So let's go ahead and get started. So to leverage the silent process exit technique with WER-fault, all we simply do is first, I want to add the firewall rule to Windows to prevent the EDR from reporting the alert of me doing this to the central server. So the Security Operations Center on this network is none the wiser if they're monitoring the EDR tool. So to do that, we just simply go into firewall settings. Go to advanced settings. And I'm going to go ahead and go to outbound rules, and I'm going to say new rule. And we're going to specify program as the firewall rule, and the program path I'm just going to go ahead and put in system. And I'm going to say block the connection on domain private and public, and I'm going to go ahead and call this block EDR alerts. Okay, now that I have added the new outbound firewall rule to prevent the EDR from reporting alerts about what I'm about to do to the central console that the Security Operations Center is probably monitoring, I'm going to go ahead and list all of the processes that are running on this machine to find out what the process ID of LSAS is. Now, every service running in an operating system is going to run as a process which has an associated PID or process ID. We need to find that process ID for LSAS in order to be able to leverage the silent process exit technique to dump that memory. So to do that, I'm just going to use the command task list, and I'm going to pipe that through find, and I'm going to look for LSAS in that process tree. So we see that LSAS is actually running as PID 680, and that's all we need. Now what it's trying to do is actually dump PID 680 in order to create that memory dump file. Now, the one thing about this tool I can tell you is, number one, I've had to actually run it multiple times when it failed the first time. And then secondly, once that happens and it's successful, it will actually brick the machine. So in every single instance where I've used this on a network that I've compromised, this has made the machine unresponsive, meaning that I've bricked the machine. Here we see that looks like it's failing to dump that memory file. So we're going to go ahead and run it again. And it looks like the process completed. Now, if we do another directory listing here, we can see that there's a 50 meg memory dump file in this directory. And then that's when we can take that memory dump file and actually put that within Mimikatz to extract those credentials. So that's all you do. So just to review the steps here, I added the outbound firewall rule for system, preventing the EDR from being able to communicate alerts outbound. And now I've gone ahead and listed the processes running on the machine found that LSAS was running as PID 680, and I used our silent process tool to kill that process so LSAS could dump that memory to a dump file. Now, one of the things that I'm going to show you is I just as I suspected, and every time I've run this, it did brick the machine. So I'm clicking on the start menu here, and I'm just going to go ahead and type in CMD, and you can see that the start menu is actually unresponsive. It looks like the search bar is also gone. That was sitting right here. So this machine is pretty borked. That's a technical term. So there's really nothing more we can do here. If I hit the power button, it doesn't seem to even be responding to that, so I can't reboot it. So someone is going to have to actually do a forced reset of this machine. Now that we've bricked this machine, I have my memory dump file. I can then transfer that to my staging server where I have Mimikatz running, and then just carve through that dump file to find all of the credentials. And that's really all you do. So I'm going to go ahead and log off this machine. It's already unresponsive. I really can't do anything on it. I really want to get off of this network so I don't show up in anything, and probably delete the log files. Okay, so we had so much fun yesterday in the attack of disabling and evading EDR that I've come back for a second round in an attempt to go after more endpoints and potentially more data that I can lock and leak. So where I am now at this point is I have another beachhead on the network using the same credentials that we bought from the employee. And I'm going to go ahead and walk through the same kill chain as the other day and see what we get. Okay, so on our beachhead, I've gone ahead and downloaded my toolkit from my staging server in the Azure cloud that you saw me use in the previous attack. I've placed that in my desktop under toolkit. I have a number of tools here. I have Crack Map Exec, which is a great run and gun tool for mapping out the network, using credentials that we've captured from the LSAS dump, things like that. So it basically just sprays the network with creds that we have. It also attempts null sessions. We also have some other items in here. I have the night.exe backdoor, which basically just does a reverse tunnel out to my machine in my staging server on the internet. I also have Mimikatz on here, Process Hacker, which you saw me use in the previous video, as well as PSExec. I've got the ransomware executable for locking and leaking more data that we find, as well as wget. So these are this is the typical tool chest that I use whenever I get a foothold on a network and I'm ready to lock and leak the victim. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is, of course, grab a dump from this machine. This is a new host that we have a beachhead on, and we want to carve all of the credentials out of memory and do a dump from LSAS. So let's go ahead and do that. So first I've created a command shell that's run as administrator because we're local admin. And I'm going to go ahead and use the PSExec tool again for system. And I'm just going to run that as CMD. And I have a PSExec command shell running as system. Now, as I mentioned, I'm using Mimikatz to carve credentials out of memory. So there's a little bit of a shortcut here. This is a command line that I use. It basically just, it gets us out of interactive mode from within Mimikatz, and it just puts everything in one single command line and then outputs that to a text file. And then I'm just going to call that mimikatz.out. And of course, it helps if you're in the right directory. Okay, we should have our out file now. Looks like we do, and that's about 13 megs in size. So if we type that out. All right, awesome. It looks like we have a successful dump from LSAS of all of the credentials that are currently in the Hive. So I've got this list of usernames and passwords. I've gone ahead and let's just go ahead and try some of these. It looks like we have a good password recovery for ginger.knowles with the password of warrick654. Now it's telling us, it's giving us a new machine, a new endpoint called EP0438. So we can try that, but I prefer to use CrackMap. And CrackMap, again, is the run and gun tool that I like to use for spraying the network and looking for other potential endpoints that we can successfully authenticate with. So we've got this Ginger Knowles username and password. Let's go ahead and give that a shot and see what we can connect to. So it's going ahead and it's trying everything in the entire subnet. This is the whole class C for the machine that I'm on, with the username and the password being specified. It looks like we have a successful connection to a 10.160.5.48 machine with that same username and password. Let's go ahead and do a lookup on that and see what its host name is. I wonder if it's that EP machine that we saw earlier. Doesn't look like we have a DNS entry. Okay, that's weird. You would expect a DNS entry in a corporate network. Let's go and give it a shot anyway. So I'm going to attempt to actually remote into these machines using our RDP. And we will just specify these same machines that CrackMap is telling us we can connect with. Looks like we have a good connect. And we have a password of warrick654. It's weird. CrackMap is telling us that it can successfully log in. Why can't I authenticate? Maybe I mistyped it. Oh shit, I think we've just run into a deception. They might be using a deception technology here. Let's try a different machine. All right, we have a successful connect. Maybe there's a problem with that host. Damn it, that looks like it's failing as well. Yeah, I think we may be dealing with a deception technology. More and more companies are beginning to use these. I'm going to try... You know, we had another set of credentials. Let's try this Dan.Jennings. That doesn't seem to be working either. This is really disturbing. I see another username here, Gabriel.Shear. Let's try that. CISD.lab. Yeah, I think we may in fact be dealing with that. Let me try. You know, I have a feeling that's the same exact machine. Yep. All right, so basically it looks like this wasn't going to be as easy as I thought it would. Our tool is telling us that these credentials work. We clearly carved them out of memory. We did this through an LSS dump. For some reason, these usernames and passwords don't seem to be working. I'm even wondering if these are real hosts. Let me see what we have in network neighborhood. Here's that 0438 machine. All right, it looks like we have some. Let me just try AP0438. How is that even possible? I see it in network neighborhood, but the password isn't working. We have a shared folder here, finance. Let me try. What is happening? Yep, I think that's exactly what's going on. All right, well, it doesn't look like any of my other tools to pivot around the network and harvest files is gonna work. It looks like the only thing we're just stuck on this host that we have, which doesn't seem to actually have anything on it. Well, I don't think there's really anything left we can do. So to recap, I was successful in carving credentials out of memory on the beachhead we had. We then fed those into our tools, and according to those tools, they were able to successfully authenticate. But when we actually attempted to pivot laterally and begin connecting to other endpoints with those working credentials, they all of a sudden stopped working, which tells me that the hosts were either not real, credentials were not real, or all of the above. So I'm going to scrape my losses and call it a day, and just take the one win that I have from yesterday and be on my way. So I woke up today and I thought to myself, what's the best way to exact my revenge against that company that wasted my time yesterday, installed deception technology preventing me from being able to move around within the network? How do I get them back for wasting my time? And then I thought, well, I remember there being a network share to their corporate documents folder from my beachhead. I think eye for an eye. Let's waste their time. I'm going to run my ransomware encryptor from my beachhead and just encrypt the entire network share. So follow along with me while we have a little fun. So it looks like X drive is a mapped drive to CISSRv5 corporate documents. This actually looks like a real machine. And there's a contracts and some insurance folders in here. This has to be worth something to them. So screw it. Let's just encrypt the entire network share. Wait, what's this? What the hell is .contracts? This isn't one of those folders. Damn it. Oh my god, the encryptor isn't even working? What the hell is this? You gotta be kidding me. Let's try it again. It's some kind of sinkhole. You gotta be kidding me. I can't even lock any files from my beachhead? What a waste of time. Looks like my encryptor even froze. Never mind. Well, that was a complete waste of time. What a shitty way to end my week. I'm out.
1, 2, 3, 4. Close your windows, lock your door. 'Cause you never know for sure who it is he's coming for. 5, 6, 7, 8. By the time it's getting late, all that you can do is wait. The waterman decides your fate.